All right, so you guys ready to learn about some marketing? Woo! This is me and my family. That's my wife Erin, Declan, who's 3, and Mara, who's now 4 months old, and Dart, who's in the middle, his stuffed corgi, which goes everywhere with him. Declan's even convinced me that we need 2 cake pops at Starbucks so that Dart can have one. And then he says, Dart, can I have yours and help you eat it? Ruff, yes you can. So yeah, he's figuring out life very quickly. We actually got our pumpkins already, so this was just like 2 weekends ago. I work with Unique Venues. I'm the strategic growth director. I manage all the kind of SEO strategy for Unique Venues, and work with Allison on content, work with Corey a little bit on business development stuff, and then also offer the consulting services, which I think some of you have taken advantage of. I was really involved on the University of Maine website build that Chuck mentioned yesterday. So kind of helping out in a lot of different areas, and I've been doing digital marketing really since college, so 20 plus years. And I love it, and it's great that it's become an industry that I can continue doing. So it's a lot of fun. So today we're going to talk about persuasion, and I wanted to throw this logo soup up here and ask you guys, what do you see in all of these logos that's maybe common? It could be red, yep. So there's a couple things that stand out. You know, we have the color of red and yellow. A lot of fast food restaurants, they did some research way back, and they figured out that red and yellow makes us feel hungry. So that's why you see that McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, Pizza Hut, all of them have some kind of red or yellow in them. We also get the movement. You can see a lot of these have some kind of angle to them, some script look to them. You know, even Pizza Hut has that. Domino's even rebranded with their kind of domino moving up to the right. Taco Bell's got the bell going up to the right. So there's a lot of elements in the logo design and colors that are kind of invoking some kind of feeling from us. This is changing though. You know, a lot of the fast food restaurants are rebranding. They're having to deal with like a Chipotle, Baja Fresh, some of these more healthy options. And so we're actually starting to see some of the changes moving where people are moving away from the kind of I feel hungry look and more to I need to charge a little bit more to compete with my competitors look. So this is Taco Bell's logo as it's moved throughout the last probably 2 decades. And so, you know, has the price of your food increased as they've changed their brand? Well, we went from, you know, yellow and black to this, and now we're like, I don't know if you've seen the new Taco Bell designs, the actual stores. I mean, they look, you know, gray and purple and kind of more luxurious, right? So they're really trying to make changes in terms of what they can charge their customers, and, you know, the days of 69-cent tacos are kind of gone. We're all spending $30, you know, if you go to a fast food restaurant, which is as much as if you eat at a normal restaurant. So, So who's heard of fourth meal? Fourth meal. Taco Bell invented the fourth meal. Did we know that the fourth meal existed? It's this meal between dinner and breakfast, usually around midnight or 1 o'clock. We didn't know that this existed until they told us about it, right? Some of us were eating it, especially if you're in college. But you know, this is a really good example of persuasion. Like, we kind of know this exists, we're kind of doing it, and Taco Bell says, hey, you know, we have 3 meals that we're selling food for. Let's create a 4th. We already know it exists. Let's tell people about it. And that's really where I think persuasion comes in. We kind of know sometimes that we need something. There's a product out there, you know, a service out there that exists. And sometimes we just don't know about it until we're told that we need it. And I think that's where persuasion comes in and is in a positive light. You're kind of connecting somebody to something that they didn't know that they already needed. I was talking with Lisa. Where's Lisa? Is she here? I was talking with Lisa a few weeks ago, and she was like, I hate the word persuasion. It sounds so icky. And so we had a conversation about it, and I was like, yeah, I agree with you. It sounds kind of, you know, like you're trying to pull something over someone. But, you know, at the core of it, it really is bringing together some product, some service, and aligning it with the needs of somebody. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to do that today with social media. And then the second half of our kind of workshop, we're going to get into all the other marketing channels. And we're going to talk about some of the kind of theory behind this. I went to school at Oregon State University and studied communications and focused on negotiation. So I really enjoy this topic, actually. And of course, marketing and persuasion kind of go hand in hand. So we're going to get into the weeds of this a little bit. So there's four modes of persuasion. The first one is ethos. You may have seen this. It's kind of, anyone in the psychology fields or anything like that, you might have seen this before. But ethos is credibility. And there's either assumed credibility or there's established credibility. Assumed credibility is that you just assume somebody's credible because they're up there talking on a stage, waving their hands, right? And there's established, which is like there's some reason, there's some fact that this exists, right? So if I told you that I had a communications degree from Oregon State University and studied negotiation and talked about this for 4 years, you might believe me, right? So you can establish credibility, you can prove it, you can kind of bring it on and create it. So that's just something to think about, with your venues is how can you, if you don't feel like you have enough credibility in the marketplace, how can you establish that? And some of the ways you might be able to do that are through social media, Google Ads, SEO, content development. Pathos is the emotions. This is the one that people kind of, I think, feel a little icky around, right, with persuasion, is you're appealing to someone's emotions. So sometimes you see this, in times of a pandemic, all of a sudden you're getting mask ads on Facebook and they're saying protect your family, that kind of stuff, right? That's appealing to our emotions. It feels a little icky in the moment, but they probably sold a lot of masks on Amazon. So that's something to just kind of be careful with. You've got to be sensitive with it, but it's also probably the most powerful one, right? Because all of our emotions are what's driving some of our decision makings, especially in the moment. Then we have logos. This is kind of the logical one. This is where we get into the words like red herring, and it's basically just appealing to someone's logic. There's a few things to avoid, the faulty logic concepts with, kind of appealing to someone's ignorance, for instance. You don't really want to do that. You're going to kind of get an opposite reaction that you might think. And then there's kairos, which is kind of the right moment. And this is kind of basically, let's figure out when to market to people and pull out our persuasion tactics at the right moment for them. So could it be that it's a time of credibility? Could it be that it's time to rely on emotional appeal at that right moment? So that's kind of the fourth one that isn't really official, but it's kind of been developed along the way that I think is interesting. So in my world, we talk a lot about conversion rate optimization, CRO. You may have heard that. It's kind of a growing term over the last 10 years. And we really try to figure out on someone's website or in someone's marketing campaign, how do we squeeze the most conversions out of what we have? And there's a lot of things that can go into that. We have colors, imagery, the words, the way that things are laid out on a page. Up in the left here, we have McMinimans, and then here we have Evergreen, and these are mobile landing pages essentially. Can you guess which one actually gets more inquiries? It's the one on the right that has the logo or the Inquire Now button and easily discernible icons at the top that tell you what they are. This one has less conversions. It's just a picture, right, on your phone. So those are the things that I look at on a website, and you can do some A/B testing on and kind of figure out which is going to be the best option to go with. So how do we move into using some of these elements in our marketing? These are kind of the collection of ideas that I have around that. So targeting the right levels of the funnel, getting into your customer journey and looking at personas, and then being in the right channel at the right time. We're going to talk a little bit about LinkedIn because I think that's the most relevant for everyone here. Language and text, design elements of social media campaign or a website, using the different fonts, colors, and design, photography and videos, and then also the influencer trust building campaign. Who here's done an influencer specific campaign? No, a few? Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing it growing a lot more actually, especially in conjunction with CVBs. Anyone that was in Susan's presentation yesterday learned about all the CVBs and DMOs, and a lot of them are starting to really use influencer campaigns a lot more with great success. So this is what a customer journey mapping looks like. I actually created this for the South San Francisco Conference Center a couple of years ago. And you can create this however you want, but I think this helps us understand where we can inject our marketing strategies in the right place. So at the top we have kind of the discovery phase. This is where people are coming into our marketing campaigns. So it could be online, offline. There's kind of some keys to success, personal touch, rapport building. A lot of this resonates with you guys. Everyone kind of, says we answer the phone very quickly. We want to get proposals out quickly. We're high level of customer service. So knowing that is part of the discovery process and what we want to share with people, we need to make sure that our content and marketing message has that. And then we have some lead qualifiers that matter. And how does our sales process work? Probably pretty similar to yours. And then we actually have the event experience. Here's all the stuff that happens. And then the loyalty and re-engagement. So there's opportunities for persuasion and social media marketing and marketing all along the way here. And this is actually something that they printed out in their office and keep up just so that they can kind of say, visually say, hey, here's where we are in this process. It's, becomes pretty remedial, I think, over time, but it's a nice reminder of kind of what we're working towards. This is a persona that we created for UCSD this last year. We went through a process with them and created different personas for all the different planners that might be reaching out. And I love this process. We all kind of think who our customer is. We think we know who they are, but if you can put them into 4 or 5 buckets and say, this is this person, these are the things that are their buying decisions. Here's their knowledge in terms of meeting planning. Here's their unique needs that they really care about. Here's all the different kind of elements of how long the sales cycle is. And then here's some of our decision factors that kind of can make or break that decision for them. And then really give them, like we give them a quote here, right? And a name and a type of, event planner that they are. I think they had 7 personas by the end of it, which 5 were kind of primary and 2 were secondary. That is weird. All right. So this I think really helps us kind of figure out like what does some of our messaging need to look like. So in social media, the buying decisions, right? So price, space, configuration options, all that. So how do we include that in social media, right? So we, instead of just taking pictures of our beautiful spaces, maybe we show different configuration types, or we make sure that in our photos, we have 3 or 4 variety of different configurations that we're using. Knowledge side of things, what resources can we give to a planner? If we know that wedding planners or social planners are a little bit less experienced because that's not what they do for a living, it's kind of a one-off, or maybe in the industry we know that planners are a little bit younger. I think I saw that on someone's slide yesterday, which is definitely true, kind of post-pandemic. So what resources and tools can we give them? And that's a great social media post. That could be a checklist that people download. So this just kind of are some ideas of how you can use persona development to actually create content in your marketing. And then, down here at the unique needs site section, if you're talking to a professional groups planner, like let's make sure that all of these unique needs are incorporated as well. So being in the right channel is critical. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about social media and who's on all the different platforms. We all know the big and important platforms for B2B is LinkedIn. Facebook and Instagram are great. TikTok if you want to be on it. And who knows what else is out there or what Elon Musk will be buying next. I think it just matters. The big thing that matters to me are the people that you want to talk to on that platform, and are they engaging? I mean, at the end of the day, that's what matters, right? It's not what's the biggest platform. We need to be there. Are our people there? So Pinterest, I think is actually pretty successful for the meeting and event space because it's visual and you can show off collections of things and people can pin, and it is a very engaged group. So Sprout Social and there's a Pew Research report that kind of breaks down all the different social channels and who's on them and demographics and all that stuff. So definitely take a look at that and see if there's a channel that fits your needs other than kind of some of the main ones. But LinkedIn, I would say, is probably the most important one for us to care about. There's almost 1 billion people on LinkedIn. There's 810 million of them. A lot of the people visit the site daily. We've got 57 million companies on LinkedIn, so those are all potential customers, right? If you're trying to bring in corporate event planners. Millennials are a big part of the platform. LinkedIn today is probably the #1 place for college graduates to go and put their information up if they're looking for a job. So if you're having a hard time hiring people, LinkedIn is probably the place you want to be. And it is, I think, become a cultural piece of millennials and recent college graduates. Like, it's a rite of passage. I need to be on LinkedIn. I need to update my LinkedIn. I've heard that before. I need to get my resume up there. I need to kind of spend some time now updating my LinkedIn information. So definitely on the hiring side, I think LinkedIn is important. But there's a lot of associations and groups that some of your professors are part of that are on LinkedIn. So if you want to get in front of some of those people, I think using LinkedIn to be in that kind of authoritative space as here's our event planning staff and team and cool stuff that they're doing, and get that in front of those planners, I think that can be a good way to use it. So I definitely think LinkedIn is probably the #1 platform, even over Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat. I don't know. So what works the best on LinkedIn? So LinkedIn actually allows you to publish content. You don't just have to share links and blog posts. You can actually publish long-form content. There's a lot of data out there about how long this needs to be, and it's about 2,000 words, which is a lot. On the SEO side of things, Google tends to rank cornerstone content, which is content over 2,000 words, really well. LinkedIn kind of follows the same strategy. When you look at a topic or some kind of subset of topics, usually it takes about 300 or 400 or 500 words per section to really get full coverage. So if a topic has 4 or 5 subtopics, then about 2,000 words makes sense. So I definitely would, I don't know why that's flashing, but I would definitely invest some time in LinkedIn, and it could be testimonials, it could be a story about an event that just happened that was maybe a week-long event and all the stuff that went into it and the planning. I think that can help planners kind of see a little bit more of what you can do. Syndicated third-party content, there's actually a LinkedIn content suggestion tool that you can use that will actually tell you based on your followers what kind of content they're reading, which is pretty cool. So go into LinkedIn and check that out, or you can do a Google search, of course, and find it. It's probably the easiest way. So that's a pretty nice thing to do. And then the shorter cut videos on LinkedIn tend to do really well, like less than 4 seconds or so. That's kind of the break off. Video has kind of different break off points where people drop off. 4 seconds, maybe 15 seconds, and then they start watching the whole thing, but that's only 10% of the people. So LinkedIn, shorter videos make sense, and really for all social media channels, 4 seconds is kind of a big drop off of where people that are actually watching it and then they scroll down past it. So you've got to get some kind of messaging out there within 3 or 4 seconds. Text posts do really well also. Has anyone ever used emojis in LinkedIn on posts? Yeah, a few of you. Those actually do really, really well because they are basically an image, and on a mobile device it stands out quite a bit. So some of the posts that I personally engage with the most, might have a bulleted list and someone uses an emoji of an airplane and a party and wine, and hey, we're going on a wine trip, right? And here's all the cool things that you need to do to enter for a giveaway or something like that. So definitely use emojis. It definitely can increase your visibility. And then images, of course, are important. All the different, you guys know this, all the different social channels have different image sizes. Maybe use Canva or something like that to kind of resize images easily. But really important, I think, to bring in some of your into your images, some of your persuasive strategy. And that can be done in how the images are being shot, the subject matter of the images, and some of the text. So we're going to actually talk a little bit about that. And I always get the question, when should I post on social media? According to HubSpot, which is pretty big, between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock Central. There you go. So Language and text. These are some of the key ingredients that I think are really important for social media. Social proof. And you can see we're starting to get into some of those logos, pathos things here, right? Social proof, kind of authoritative things as well. So real people on social media that look and sound like your customers. I think we forget that a lot. Like we put up stock photos, we put up photos that look good that maybe we got from a student, photography team, but let's get photos of people that look and sound like, and videos that sound like our customers. And there's obviously regional dialect there, there's gender, there's race, there's all kinds of stuff that you can bring into that, which I think in today's world is overly accepted, right? We want that there, but sometimes we don't think about it, and especially some of the micro channels like an email marketing campaign or social media, we kind of forget to include enough of that in there that's going to drive some of the conversions. Some of the authority pieces that you can bring into this, so either you are an authority or you can find someone to talk about you who is. So, on the sales side of things, if you can find the place where my customers look towards for advice, who's the authority to them, and you can get in with them, then you're going to be talked about in a light that they're going to trust, right? So if I want to do marketing to hotels, I might go find the local tourism association and try to get in with them so that they can then trust me, bring me up on stage, talk about things like that, and try to bring them in as customers. So for you guys, I know you probably go to a lot of conferences, or you have in the last years, but who are the people that your customers trust? Go get in front of them, go get with them on their social media channels, go do some collaboration, some content sharing. That can go a really long way. And then getting a commitment, I think, is really important too. It's a little hard to do on social media, but if you can offer some partial content and then allow people to click into your website or do some action that kind of requires them to commit and give you their email address in order to get some gated content, I think that's really a good strategy. And then we need to like other people, but not get likes, right? I think we're all like, how many likes do we get? How many comments are we getting? How much social engagement do we get? But reaching out on social media in person to a tourism association, a downtown association, a company that you want to bring in as a customer and actually engaging with them goes a really long way. And LinkedIn does have their Sales Navigator tool, which allows you to bring in personal contact information when you're reaching out to people. I think it's a really good way to engage, and if you have a budget for, I think it's $150 a month or something, it can really amplify what your sales team's doing. And then reciprocity. I'm having my auxiliary moment there. And giving back, helps build trust, obviously, within your community. So social media is a good place to say, here's all the great stuff we're doing for our community. And a lot of you that are at universities have endowment funds and different nonprofits that you might be working with, or student groups that you can showcase. And then scarcity drives action. I think that's one that we all know, but how do you create that without sounding overly salesy? I think that's a big challenge, obviously. Bringing in things like seasonality, bringing in things like, I think I heard yesterday someone was saying like, you need to book now because we're filling up, right? And just sometimes saying that, like, this is our busy time. We're usually booked for, first quarter of 2023 by June 2022, right? Just letting people know that creates kind of a light scarcity. And then I have a quote from Jane Austen. So how quick come the reasons for approving what we like? And I think this is kind of powerful, actually. So if we decide that we like something, if we decide that, somebody is authoritative, if we decide that, this quote is relevant to us, I like this company. I like this, I like this university. They look great. Like so-and-so says it's amazing. So whatever in your mind you've decided, for whatever reason, that this is the best solution, as a planner, you start coming up with more and more ideas of why that's the right solution. And even like I'm agreeing with myself, and I'm kind of amplifying my own thought process around that. So I think if you can give somebody that first kind of taste in whatever way it is for them to kind of come up with some level of approving, then you start to build on that. These are some more quotes. I really like this book. I think it's from the 90s. It's called Why We Buy by Paco Underhill. A lot of my early marketing strategies and just kind of thought process came from this book. It's kind of more on the like physical shopping side of things, but there's some really good stuff in here. He talks about, why when you went into Abercrombie and Fitch, you smelled all the cologne and the wood, was in there. The lights were dim, indirect lighting, like all these different things. He talks about, if you're in a supermarket, the end caps, how those are grabbing your attention and how things are organized in the aisles and all this stuff. So there's a lot of interesting stuff in there, and I think there's some kind of non-shopping things that you might find interesting in reading that book. So there's some stuff here that I pulled out that I thought was interesting for us today. So, if you give people too much information too soon, you're going to overload them and they'll give up. But if you confuse them, which is almost worse than overloading, they're just going to ignore you altogether. So in our marketing messaging, being clear and concise and not overloading people, I think is important. And then you've also got a plan for the non-shopper as much as the shopper, right? So there's a lot of people that, we're out there marketing, we're trying to convince people to do things, but there's people that are going to come to you and say, I'm ready to book. How do I do that, right? So having a strategy for hey, these people are already sold. Maybe they heard from a friend that this was a great venue, and now they're just ready to get the details and sign, right? So how do we move that through quickly and efficiently through our process? And then given the chance, people will buy from people who care. So, obviously we see a lot of companies that are giving 1% back to the planet. We have the concept of B corporations. So there's a lot of that kind of comes out in marketing that, is showing, some companies showing people that they care about something. And that's kind of where they're trying to, get a little extra sales around. And then I thought this was cool. And I think this is shopping related, but I think it makes sense. Like, remember that more than 60% of what we buy wasn't on our list, right? So there's the upsell opportunity for venues, right? So people come to you, they say, here's our budget, here's what we're trying to do, and by the end of it, they're spending 50% more because you've added in all these services that they didn't know that they needed. That's persuasion. That's you doing exactly what we're talking about today. So here's some design elements that we created for South San Francisco over the years. South San Francisco Conference Center is in the Bay Area. One of their biggest customers are biotech and financial companies, cryptocurrencies, all that stuff. So they actually went through a redesign of their own brand, and we kind of brought in some of the elements. You can see it's kind of like molecule-y looking and some of the different colors. I don't know why that keeps doing that. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can adjust this here. I guess so, yeah. Okay. So, the colors, the white on black is bold. The purples, it kind of fits with some of their biotech customers' logos, brands. So it's making South San Francisco look like they're part of that community. And that's pretty important. So how do you bring your venue's brand to look like you're part of a community that you're trying to reach, right? I think that's a really important thing to think about. And it could be the colors, it could be your logo, it could be your imagery, it could be how you're talking about yourselves. Instead of talking to the community, talk as if you're within the community, right? I think that's a kind of big conceptual thing to get through. So yeah, that's a good example, just kind of photography-wise. Also, photography and videos. The photography that's out there that you use is going to be really different, and I think there's some ways that you can kind of bring in different elements of persuasion into this. So, this big broad photo, this is from the University of Maine. This shows the vastness of that space. It's not intimate, right? So showing the vastness of this space on a page where it's for large events makes sense. And then on the other side here, we actually have a photo that's kind of from a down angle, right? It's more intimate. It's two people talking. They're sharing. They're having a social moment there over some food. And that's a totally different experience than the vast space that we see on the other side. These are both from the University of Maine, and these are on different landing pages, and these are being used in different ways. So think about that on your own website and in your social media channels. How can we use photos to kind of communicate some of these elements that we're hoping to? This is kind of a fun one. So, eyes and gestures matter. So this is actually some conversion rate details based on what the person in the photo is doing. So if you are having someone take photos of people, the gestures, the way they're looking, where they're pointing actually matters, right? And there's a lot of data about this. So think about this. If you're using stock photography, you can kind of use some of this, but if you're doing real photography with real people and you're picking photos of hundreds, you might want to look for photos where it has someone making a gesture or kind of talking in the grandness of this space, or they're wanting to share something over here, or they're looking at something up here because it's an arena, right? So those are some ways that you can incorporate some of this into getting better conversions on your content. And more on that too. So how do we showcase some of our intangibles? I think this is a big question. A lot of us have venues that are competing with other venues. The space might be similar, the price might be similar, maybe we're not the cheapest option. But what are some of the intangibles that we have that we can showcase? The history, right? A lot of the venues, a lot of the universities have history. So let's show that in addition to the rooms. I think some of that gets missed, to be honest. I think some of the historical stories you don't find out until you get to the university or until you talk to somebody. So how do you bring that out in photography? I think is a really important thing to think about. Vast space, intimate space. I keep hearing safety, especially for youth camps and universities where you have multiple venues where people are moving around. For UCSD, when we did some work with them earlier this year, safety was a thing that they brought up, and they actually, I think on their new website, are going to include a map that actually shows kind of the corridors of safe areas for kids to move around for youth group camps and things like that. I don't know that I've ever seen that really on a website before, but I think that can visually show where some of the safety and access comes out. So, and then venue type obviously is important. This is a theater or auditorium, so the right angles and things like that can make a big difference. Bringing out emotions. So this is actually based on some real data. I think it's important for us to kind of look at our photography. I mean, we're talking about social media, so a lot of that is visual, and so flat lighting on objects kind of brings us closer to them. That's something that's actually proven in research. So think about that with the lighting that you're using on some of your social media images. Light from below, shining up, kind of shows some power and confidence. I've seen portraiture studios use that to kind of show new dads kind of coming into their light, right, with a baby. I think that's a pretty common thing that you see. And then light from above is kind of uplifting, right? It's coming down from the heavens. So that's something that if you want to invoke some of these emotions in your messaging, you can do that. Nostalgic settings really drive interest, but they also drive connection. The younger generation of planners, I think they're looking for some connection. They've grown up in a world where they're disconnected, but still 100% connected to their phone. Some of them are looking for things to be connected to. So if you can bring that out and show them some of that through your messaging, I think you get better conversions, and you obviously connect. That could be that one connection point, right, where someone says, oh, this reminds me of, and I want to hold an event there, right? So I think that's really important. And then the movement and gestures, it all makes us happy. It's actually proven that if we see that, we're all happier. And you are all happy as I go like this. So building trust, by engaging with influencers, I think is better than selling, right? So influencers, I think, we all have gone through this influencer phase of, seeing someone out on a beach doing some cool stuff, and that's their job, and so, whatever that is, right? And so some of the things that I think are really important for us to use with building influencer campaigns are actually to set some goals for awareness and credibility and loyalty building. Those are probably the most important things that you can do with an influencer campaign. And these actually are the things that drive sales. This goes back to some of the persuasion concepts, right? The awareness, the credibility, the loyalty. So how do you do that with an influencer, right? You've got to find someone who has credibility and has loyal followers and has the awareness that's big enough to really make a difference. So that's something to think about when you are reaching out to potential partners on social media or in the media, even for PR. You know, what is their credibility, loyalty, and awareness? And then I think you can play matchmaker with your customers and the influencers' reach, right? So, you know, I think we all don't trust, you know, maybe someone who on Instagram or Facebook who has 1 million followers, how many of them are actually engaged? So it's not about the number, it's about how many of those are actually engaged. It's on, you know, LinkedIn, it's more about what group of people can you actually influence. And so I think that's where you start to kind of say, okay, we're going to find someone that can actually match us up with the right person. And then your brand personality, I think, is really important to come through on social media. You know, the brand promise, who you are, what you stand for, advocacy, you know, all of that stuff can come through on social media messaging. I don't think it comes through enough for most people. We put our logo on an image and we post it on Facebook and we're good to go. So, you know, how do you talk about your brand without talking about your brand? You can do it through photos. You can do it through different messaging. And then influencers kind of have a maximum reach. There's a ceiling, right, on influencers that you really can't reach beyond. And so maybe 5 influencers instead of one big one is the better way to go. And I'm actually seeing that a lot more on the social media side and influencer side. It does come down to a collection of people that have a smaller group of engaged individuals that they can reach instead of one person that has 1 million followers. And then your pitch should kind of exude your brand and connect to theirs. So this is kind of a B2B concept, right? So your brand needs to come through in your pitch to people, but you also need to connect in some way with theirs, right? There's got to be some commonality between you and the company that you're trying to bring in. What is that? And I think we get into selling mode sometimes, or pushing out content mode sometimes on social media channels, and we forget, like, how are we going to actually connect to this person? What is that one thing that they're going to latch on to about our brand that's similar to their brand that says, okay, now I'm going to convince myself that this is the right decision, right? Like we just talked about the Jane Austen quote. And so I think that's important to look at. And then don't forget, your best influencer are your loyal customers, the people that have already booked events with you. I think I saw in Bingo, you know, I've already held 100 events this year, 150 events this year. Well, there's 150 loyal customers that probably have social media accounts that could share their experience with your potential future customers. So we can't forget about them. And a lot of them probably are influencers in their own right. They're in some industry where they're an authority person that can talk about you. And so I think that's a really important thing to think about. And then tracking your results, obviously, number of shares and follows and all that is great, but you know, how many people are we actually getting engaged, coming back, talking to us through our social channels? And then I wanted to talk real quick about this. So has anyone used the Facebook or Meta ad library? No? Cool, sweet. You guys should all go check this out. So you can literally take, it's a kind of free tool. You can take any business or any, like a tourism organization or anything like that, and do a search for it, and it will bring up all of their active ads that are running on Facebook, and it will tell you who they're targeting. This was really interesting to do when Trump was running, because you could see that he was literally running ads in areas where he wanted to win that were targeting certain groups of people. So on the political side, it's really interesting. On the corporate marketing side, you know, you can see the types of people and the actual geographic area that they're targeting. So I know, you know, politicians use this a ton because they want to see who their competitors are running against, or their competitors are targeting. But for you, this is good on the tourism side. You can actually see who your competitors are targeting and what kind of ads they're running. I did this just with like Visit Florida just to see, and they have 15 ads running, 10 of them are videos, which was interesting, more videos than not. You can see what their messaging looks like. You can see, I think it even gives you an estimate of like when the videos or when the ads started, and even you can kind of figure out some of the budget information too. So it's a really cool tool to use, and I definitely recommend you using that just to get some ideas on your competition. All right, I think that's it for this first half. We have another group of content that I'm going to go through. We're going to talk a little bit more in detail on some of this and some of the other channels other than social media. So I think we have a few minutes for questions, and then Michael Brown's going to lead us in some break stuff. I don't know if he's going to do yoga or what, but yeah. So any questions? Yes.
What is your take on putting your pricing on websites or out on social media? I've heard two different.
Yeah. If your pricing is going to make a difference in that conversion, then you should do it. Like if you're competitive enough that someone's going to, and comparatively enough, you have the similar space size, you can offer what your competitors offer, and it's 25% cheaper, then you might want to do it. There's some ways you can put pricing out there without saying pricing though, right? You might use the $3 or $4 sign scale, right? To just kind of show here's how we compare. I've seen some venues even show like, here's how we are compared to the 3 competitors and all the amenities that we offer and our pricing and catering's available or not and all this stuff as a way to really kind of hammer in that point. So.
You buy a suitcase if you didn't know the price.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Question.
Yep, Hilmy, here you go.
Yes. How are we on time real quick?
Wait a second. Phil
I
Donahue.
think we're good.
I don't think I need one.
Sort of?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have some photos that have people in them and some that don't have anybody in them. Have you found which works better? Because we have large venue spaces, but we've always been told we need to have people in them.
Yeah.
That they're more engaging. But you have pictures with nobody in them. So
Yeah.
what's your take on that?
I think there's a purpose, right, of showing photos with no one in them, with place settings all set up. You can visualize what your conference looks like. But I think bringing in people personalizes a little bit more. It shows a real world example. It's a little hard, looking out here to see how maybe if I want, like we have, 5 people at each round, maybe there's a max of 8 that could be here. It's a little hard to see that with everyone sitting here, but if it was all cleared out, I could see that more clearly. But it's also great to see that how this is set up in real world example. So I think using a blend of that is important. And you don't always need people at the conference in their seats, at the event to showcase the experience. Having people doing fun things in St. Petersburg can also show the experience as well.
Yes.
Yes.
The one slide you had up there targeting the right personas, that was, you worked on at an institution or worked with an institution on that one. Is there a certain place on the website that you put that you have suggestions, or that was your slide?
That was kind of an internal, are you talking about like where would you put that on your own website?
Yes.
Yeah, so that you wouldn't put that on your own website. That's
Okay.
really just like you as your internal team sitting down and planning, here's who the people are that we're going to target and doing that work, and then using that to build your marketing messaging. Super powerful. I don't know, has anyone done persona development? Really? Okay. You should do it. It makes a world of difference. It gives you guys some clarity. It gives you a kind of pathway. It says, okay, we have all these people we're trying to reach. There's 5 of them. These people fit into these buckets. These are the things that matter. So when we talk to these people, here's what we're going to say. It's hard to figure out what you're going to say if you don't know who you're trying to talk to. So definitely spend some time doing that. And you can sit down and do that real simple on a piece of paper. You can go through an exercise. You can hire someone to help you do it. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do that. So definitely important to do.